In this video, we're going to cover how to do the technology steps for your Week 7 and final discussion board in Math 203. For this assignment, you're going to be using the course evaluations data, which you see in front of you, but for this example, we're going to be using a different set of data. So for this example, we are going to use this data here, which is looking at whether or not there is a correlation between the time a student spends in my math lab and the final grade they get in class. So in your assignment, you are going to be using the course evaluation column as the dependent variable, and you are going to choose which of these three variables, the professor's evaluation, the professor's age, or the professor's beauty, is most closely correlated, is the best predictor of the course evaluation. So here, in this example, we're only having one column, so it will be assumed that I selected the time a student spends in my math lab as the best predictor for the final grade. So the first thing we need to do is look at a scatter plot to see if there's any visual evidence that there might be some linear correlation between these variables. So what I'm going to do is take this column where my time in my math lab, my independent variable is, and I'm just going to copy it and I'm going to paste it into that first column right in front. Whoops, typing things like crazy here. I'm going to paste that right in front or to the left of my dependent variable, which in my case is the grade. Yours will be the course evaluation for the dependent variable. Because when I have them in this order right next to each other, it's very easy to go ahead and just highlight these two columns together. And then to make that scatter plot, I can go up here to the Insert tab. And remember, all the graphs are here. We did this in a previous assignment. And the scatter plot is going to be this one with all the little dots. If I click on that, I can choose the very first one and click Enter. So now here I have a scatter plot, but remember, I really do need to put some labels and titles onto this graph so it makes sense what it is. So for my chart title, I'm going to title this Scatter Plot Time in MML versus Grade. I also need to label my two axes. Remember, to do that, we're going to go to Add Chart Element and Axes Titles. So for my horizontal axis, if I click on that, I can come here and edit that. So my horizontal axis is my independent variable. So this is the time in my math lab. And for my vertical axis, so I lost my item here. So if I click on the graph again and go to Chart Tools, Design, I should get that option back. So Add Chart Element, Axes Titles, Primary Vertical. And this one is going to be my dependent variable, so this is the grade, or the final grade. So now I have a scatter plot here that's showing me the relationship between these two variables. Now this doesn't look like it's in a straight line necessarily, but I definitely do think that I see some kind of a pattern where the dots sort of start off lower over here, and over time they're kind of trending upwards. So this is enough for me to say that I do think there might be some correlation between these two variables, and I'm going to proceed with my hypothesis test. For the hypothesis test, we're going to go up here to the Data tab, and we're going to look at Data Analysis over on the side. Hopefully by now that has been loaded in your Excel, but if for some reason you don't see it, you can always add it back by going to File, Options, Add-ins, Add-ins, Manage Excel Add-ins, and click Go, and then make sure these first two boxes are checked and click OK. Now you should see Data Analysis under the Data tab. So if we click on that, we're going to go ahead and choose Regression and click OK. So first it wants to know where the Y range is. The Y range is the dependent variable. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this first column, or excuse me, the second column where my grade variables were. And then the second wants to know the X range, so that's the independent variable. Here that's the time in MML. And since I did highlight this first row that included the labels, I'm going to click on labels right here to make sure that Excel knows to ignore that first row. I would like my output to be on the same page, not on a new worksheet, so I'm going to click on output range here, and I'm going to just put the values right here below where I put my graph. And that is it. That's all we're going to need here. So if we click OK, we're going to get a number of items, and let's take a look at these. So the first number that we needed is the R value. So that's going to be this part right here. Let me throw a highlight on that. So this is the R value, my correlation coefficient. So I can see the correlation coefficient here between these two variables is 0.51. So that means we do seem to have some moderate correlation here. The other number I need is the p-value. So the p-value is going to be this one right here. This is the one under the column for p-value and along the same row where we had the independent variable. So the p-value here is going to be 0.001. That's a pretty small p-value and certainly less than my alpha value, which is 0.05. So I would have to decide here to reject the null hypothesis. Remember, the rule is if the p-value is less than the significance level, less than the alpha, then you reject the null hypothesis, H0. Otherwise, you will fail to reject the null hypothesis. In a correlation test, the null hypothesis always says that there is no correlation, and the alternative hypothesis says that there is correlation. So here, when I reject the null hypothesis, I'm basically saying that I am supporting the alternative hypothesis, indicating that there is correlation. That's it. That's all you need to do for your technology portion of the Week 7 discussion board.